I think the biggest thing when it comes to delegation is understanding the whole purpose of delegating or getting things off of your calendar, or like that concept of buying back your time, right? It's not that then you don't do anything, at least not in the beginning. It's how do I free up the time so I can focus on the things that are going to have a greater impact.
Well, hey Tanner, I'm so excited for today's topic. We've been covering so many great things in this last few months that I'm excited to dive into today's topic because it's so relevant to me, and I feel like many business owners are going through something similar. So, the art of knowing how to delegate and in like grow your team in that way, or delegate to team members and let go of control, let go of the reins a little bit so you can stay sane in your business.
Oh, I love it. For anyone that's listening or watching this later on, just raise your hand if you're somebody who's a little bit of a control freak, has difficult time allowing others to take on work, things like that. Because I'm going to put my hand like fully up. It's been something that I've had to work through a lot over the last couple of years, especially when there's other things that we're adding into the business and continue to move different down these different hurdles. And Kay, for you, I know we've been talking a little bit about this process of delegating different things and how do we do that? What's that look like for the team? And I'm excited to kind of dig into this. So when you look at your business, what have been some of the experiences that you've gone through with this process of delegation? What's been really challenging, and what are some things that you've seen that have been kind of fun to experience as you've gone through that process?
Oh, yes. So a few of the things that have been kind of like challenging for me is letting go of a thought. That's one thing. And then also knowing what to delegate. So the thought is, well, I could just get it done now. I could just do it better. I mean, I could just do it faster. I could get it done. But when I add those, oh, I could just do it. And then all of a sudden I have a long list of things I need to do and I can't get to like the meat of what I need to do or should be doing as a business owner. And the other thing is knowing what to delegate, like looking at my team and say, like who wants to do what, like how, knowing how to word that, knowing how to you know, get the team members like to highlight their gifts and talents and delegate things that they are one gonna want to do, and also something that like gets them feeling like they're contributing, that they're needed, their skills are being used in a way that fulfills them.
You know what? I'd love to take this in a couple different ways to think about it. And there's so much great literature out there. There's things that we teach within kind of the action coach system. There's a bunch of amazing authors out there on the topic of time management and how to delegate and some of these things within business. But knowing what to delegate and really mastering that conversation of like, well, I know I can just get it done faster. Like, it's just right here. I'll just go do it. Like, why shouldn't I do it? Why do I need to give it to somebody else if it's going to take me 5 minutes to just do it right now versus waiting till later, right? That's probably one of the things that many, listeners and viewers are going to go, yep, I remember those moments. Because I've been there. I'm there all the time, right? And I have to like kind of take a step back and think about this. So let's start with one of the first things that we talk about, and that's the skill fund matrix. Have you heard of this before?
No, I'm very curious.
So skill fund matrix, it's really fun or really a good one to just sit down like piece of paper, and you're basically putting kind of some quadrants together. And it's basically on one axis you have like skill set, right? It's low skill versus high skill. And then on the other end, so the y-axis would be low enjoyment to high enjoyment, right? So you've got skill on one side, and you've got kind of enjoyment or fun on the other axis. So you're going through and you're thinking, what are all the different things that I do? Well, I answer emails, I edit videos, I sit down and I do podcasts, I do a lot of these different things. Maybe it's the finances in your business, or maybe it's the actual delivery of the business itself. And then you just start putting them into different points on this graph, right? So like emails, low skill, maybe low enjoyment. Okay, so that goes down here in this little box down here. Podcast hosting. Okay, I really enjoy that. And skills kind of moderate, right? Maybe it's in some cases it's a really high skill, sometimes it's a lower skill, but maybe it's moderate. So it kind of fits in a different part of the graph. Well, what about doing the books and the financials and all that kind of stuff in the business? For people like me, that might be high enjoyment. For most, I'm guessing it's probably a lower enjoyment, but it takes a little bit higher skill. So we start kind of labeling each of these things, and the goal is to do more things in the high skill, high enjoyment, because that gives you the ability to do more things, right? And it's usually those things that tend to be kind of money makers for the business, because it does take a higher level of skill, and you really enjoy doing those types of things. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if it's low enjoyment and low skill, those are great things to delegate. Sometimes even eliminate, right? So it's not just delegation, but sometimes it's eliminating things. So that's kind of one of the first ways to go, should I be doing it? Now, the next thing, and if anyone's read the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, I'm rereading it right now, so it's kind of top of mind. Definitely recommend it. It's a great book, kind of goes through some similar types of things, but he's got this thing called the buyback rate. It's really thinking about, in a business, what is your rate? What's your hourly rate within a business? And it's dividing essentially annual profitability by 2,000. That's going to give you your hourly rate. Now, to get your buyback rate, he says divide that by 8,000, or basically take a quarter of that. So if you, let's say you're $100 an hour is kind of what your rate is. If you take a quarter of that, that's $25. So if you can hire out the task for less than $25, then you should do it. Because otherwise you are losing money, because every time you do a $25 task, but you're worth $100, you lose the difference. You lose $75 an hour every single time you do it. So it really kind of puts into perspective the financial aspect of things when it comes to, should I be doing this? Yes, I can do it in 5 minutes, but if somebody else can do it and they're paid to do it, what could I be doing instead that actually has a much greater impact on the business and the ability for the business to continue to make money and reinvest back in the business?
These are great. I wrote all of this down because it's just it really makes it visual, like writing these things, doing the graph, and this and dividing that amount, so it really can help you eliminate the tasks that aren't for you, or that you've been doing that you can offload, and because you have that time that you could be investing into the business in a different way, in the ways that are exciting to you, that are bringing more to the business, and then hire out and send some of that elsewhere, that other stuff. Like emails for me is one. I feel like I spend so much time in emails, and I look and it's like 2 hours later, I'm like, what have I done? I've just been emailing this whole time. And those are the things too that are starting to compound in my day-to-day. I'm getting more emails and more contacts, and so it's just getting almost like it's going more and more, and if I could offload that and keep that system going in another place or with somebody else, then I could get back to time, get back that time.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to delegation is understanding the whole purpose of delegating, or getting things off of your calendar, or like that concept of buying back your time, right? It's not that then you don't do anything, at least not in the beginning. It's, how do I free up the time so I can focus on the things that are going to have a greater impact? If I can hire somebody else to do the editing, but I can really think about, what is the content of these podcasts going to be? What's the series that we're going to go through? Like, bigger picture, I know that that's what's going to draw people in. That's what's going to be the big value. And I can have somebody else do, I don't know that I'd call editing a low skill task in today's day and age, at least not for super high quality. But, if you can bring somebody else in to do that piece, then you can really focus on, replace that time with a really high production thing. So that's a big piece, right? So if you can offload emailing as an example, but that allows you now the time to go meet with 3 or 4 more people that could buy something from you, ultimately that's a win-win in the business, because you're going to make more money, which allows you the ability then to pay somebody to do the other tasks within the business. So that's really the purpose of the delegation side of things. Now, we'll talk about prioritizing in another video. We'll talk about the difference between delegating and what needs to be eliminated. But I think for this conversation, you mentioned starting to go through this process, handing things off to team members. How do we do that? Like, are they skilled enough? Do they know what they need to do? How do I make sure that they're equipped and it doesn't actually become a burden on me because I don't know if it's being done? I think there's a kind of a logistical thing to talk through when it comes to how do we actually delegate. But talk me through, or kind of share with us what have been some experiences you've had as you've gone through and said, all right, here's something that I'm going to give off to some of my artists or some of the other team members that you have. What does that process look like, and how have you kind of thought about how do I know that it's being done, right? The difference between abdication and delegation. Abdicating means here it is, I'm never going to check again. I have no idea if it's done. Delegating is actually going through more of a management system. So what has been your experience and how have you kind of gone through the actual handoff of things?
Oh, yes, this is a great question because I've recently revised that process into two different things that I'm working on. One is, utilizing a platform. We use Discord for communication and having everybody in there, and we're all kind of in that buzz and we're in that communication. And then there's different channels that I use. It's similar to Slack, and really getting them engaged and finding out what platform that these were my artists. That's I was like asking them what works best for them, and everybody on there is on Discord. So I've adapted and started working in the Discord and encouraging them to engage in there. And that way, those tasks that they can do and that they want to do, they can look at the information there. It's something they're already using. So it made that communication A to B a lot easier. And then we go into categorizing, so they have different channels they can go into, they can see what's there, and then they can express interest. And then we can pop on a call or a meeting in person if needed, but usually a Zoom or something to explain what needs to be done there. And then I put a document together of with a checklist of, okay, this is all that we need for this task. Do you have any questions? And so I'm really engaging with them through the process of it, which is helpful. And I'm doing that on my executive team side of things as well. So my executive team, I find out what way they communicate the best. And sometimes they need that in-person meeting so we can sit down and go over something, or it's a certain time of day that they're more communicative. So I'm just really looking at the needs so I can equip them with what they need to feel confident to do the task.
I think there's a few things in there that would be good to unpack a little bit. I think the first one that really came out of that is the communication cadence and frequency probably matters tremendous, right? You talked about the modality of communication, whether it's, we can just put this out on, the Discord channel, we can kind of see progress updates and things like that as people are communicating on the specific project or task, maybe needing some one-to-one kind of face-to-face type things. So I'm 100% with you. I think that really does matter when it comes to how do we ensure that the team members have what they need to be successful. Not that we have to do it, but how do we help them be successful and continue to empower them to make decisions and continue to move things down the road. I think the other big piece is it's a communication frequency piece, but it's also understanding what is the feedback loop, right? So if you're going to start a project, so to say, let's say it's a project related type task. How do I know where we're going to be and when? As the manager, as the person who's delegating the task, what's the way that they're going to communicate back saying, here's where I am, here's what's going to happen by Friday this week, here's what's going to happen by Friday next week, what's our check-in schedule? And that schedule doesn't necessarily need to be, hey, I'm sitting down with you just got to tell me what's going on. It's more of a meeting of kind of melding the minds and saying, hey, here's where I'm at so far, here's where I maybe need a little bit of support, here's what I think is going to happen the next couple of weeks, here's my plan. And the team member gets to really own that process. But I think it's really important, right? From a team member perspective, we do weekly one-to-ones, right? We sit down once a week and we always go through the things from last week and the things that are upcoming. And we call this the lion meeting. Last week, issues, opportunity, and next week. This is what that stands for. So we go through last week, we go through any issues or challenges that come up, what are the opportunities for the future, and kind of what's the plan for next week. From a project base, right? I've got some project-based work that I do, and I always ensure that when I'm working with a client, we are always going to have some sort of cadence for whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is, we're always going to have some sort of meeting. That meeting may only need to be 5-10 minutes. Sometimes it needs to be 30 or 40 minutes, just depending on the types of things that we need to go through. But they need to know that, they've hired me for a job and that project continues to move forward. They don't need to be involved in every step, but they do need to understand that there is that delegation aspect and things are going to happen. So communication is a big one, but modality, frequency, cadence, I think all of that really does kind of play a role. I'm curious, when you look at delegating and knowing that team members have different skills, there's different projects, do you think about it from I'm going to assign these to certain people because of what they have? Do they get to kind of self-select and say, hey, I want to take that one on because I think that's a really good fit for me? Or kind of how have you thought about that in the past?
Well, yeah, that's kind of a season I'm in right now, is discovering what is the best way to go about it. So I guess with my artists, with my collective, so I'll call them my contractors. That is more of a, they can kind of pick and choose. And we have a monthly all team call. And we go over things that will be happening in the next months, if it's DJ gig opportunities, whatever it may be. And so we check in, and then from there, we break into different groups, whether it be a Discord channel or even on Instagram or something. We have a conversation group. So that I'm kind of like discovering what works best. For my team, the same thing. We have kind of a monthly meetup, and then I talk to them individually. But I think creating more structure is definitely needed to pretty much take what we're already doing, but give it a time, give it a day, give it a time that they can be prepared for. And I think that can help them keep on the pulse of what they're doing. I mean, we all like rhythm. We're in music, so maybe they'll create a rhythm within it. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm finding what is the best method for that.
I like those methods. I think, everyone's going to be a little bit different. Every team culture is going to be slightly different. I'm a big systems and process guy, so I think having some level of kind of structure is important. Now that needs to fit kind of your vibe and different things like that. Right? But I'm a big fan of even just saying, all right, we've got this, we'll call it a project, but it could just be, hey, we've got you could call it an initiative for the month. Maybe it's salespeople, and the initiative is to achieve certain sales call numbers or sales numbers or things like that. But you could look at it from that perspective or from a project basis. We're trying to build this next thing or work on systemizing this thing or whatever it is. I'm a big fan of actually getting the team together and just mapping out what are all the different things that need to happen, right? So what is the defined goal? Let's define that collectively first. Let's break it down into what are all the different things that have to happen in order for that to be true, for us to achieve that goal. And then we can start to kind of divvy that up, right? So these people over here have a strong skill set in these three things and they want to take on this piece, right? We'll delegate this thing over and just kind of walk through that process, in a called a marketing perspective. We've got a team of marketers and, there's some that are specialized in networking. Some are specialized in strategic partners. Some are specialized in hosting interviews and different things like this, right? And then being able to say, what's our collective goal for the team and how do we break that into the different components? And then we each get to kind of take on those components, then come back once a week and say, hey, here's where we are. Here's what's happening. Here's where I'm off plan and I need some help with. And we start to build that plan together. So there is that delegation of the overall goal that kind of takes place. That's kind of how my brain works in terms of systemizing it. So hopefully that's helpful for somebody else out there that that resonates with.
Oh, definitely. I think that gives it a kind of a presence, and then creating things around goals that actually really would fit well with my team because it's a lot of artists, it's a lot of creatives, and to work on a project together is something that they're doing already. So that would be something they could already use that system in their minds to hop on board with different projects that we're doing. Setting up okay, let's find 5 venues this week that we want to create residencies at and get you all gigs. That could be a project that then we break into those smaller tasks of, okay, who's going to be making sales calls to these venues to pitch, amplify EDM artists to have residencies there. So those are then somebody from the team who stands out in that would want to do that. Or that's something I'm actually really good at. I get a lot of inquiries. And so then I could delegate that to myself and take that on. And then maybe some of the other tasks like email threads and things, that could be another team member. So looking at it like that actually makes a lot of sense.
So if we bring this all kind of full circle and kind of finish out the discussion, there's 2 things that kind of came to mind that I just wrote down. I think the first one is when you start to delegate like this, the likelihood of team members failing, getting something wrong, not doing it the way that you would have done it, things like that, it's going to happen. And that's okay, right? As long as there's a quick feedback loop. And that's why that communication piece, I think, is so vital to success when it comes to first handing things off to team members, is how do you help them succeed faster? We all make mistakes and we all do things a different way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always the wrong way, but it's okay to let go of those reins and allow people to take those risks and learn for themselves. That's how they kind of move through that learning process, just like we did when we were first learning the skills and the tasks. Our goal is to give them the guidance that they need to be successful, but get out of the way so that we can do the things that are more impactful. And the final thing that I'll say to kind of at least wrap this up on my end And again, because I'm reading the book, it's top of mind. And then, huge shout out to Dan Martell for writing the book, Buy Back Your Time, and having this particular quote, but it has stuck with me. It's the 80% done by somebody else is 100% freaking awesome. Just because it's not done at the same level that you would do it does not mean that it isn't still really awesome to have somebody else do that thing. So that's the last thing that I'll put out there in terms of, kind of wrap up this conversation.
Oh, I love those, especially that last thing too. That's a great mantra to like be encouraging, allow people to fail forward, learn and grow, and just to even have so many of my team stepping up, being excited about what we're working on. That in itself gave me so much momentum. I was like, this is time. It is time. They want to be a part of this. I need it. It's a perfect symbiotic relationship. And yeah, this has been very insightful. I really appreciate this conversation, and hopefully all y'all out there listening or watching, you get a ton out of this.
And if you're still listening, we do have some workshops coming up on this, on the specific topic of like time management, which includes kind of this delegation piece. They are free to join. They are here locally within Central Texas, but we'll put the link in the description below if you want to check those out and join us for one of those and go a little bit deeper on this particular topic. So just kind of our gift back to you here at Action Coach Central Texas.